The morning inside the top floor of the corporate tower was unusually quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, the heavy, pressure-filled quiet that only surrounded places where billions moved, reputations shattered, and empires lived or died by a signature. Inside the glass office, at the center of it all, the billionaire sat alone, reading through a stack of confidential documents. The city lights glittered behind him like tiny witnesses pressed against the night. Every inch of the office screamed power, from the marble floor to the towering windows, to the rare wood desk imported from another continent. Anyone walking in would immediately know this was the center of his empire. He didn't notice the soft footsteps approaching. He was too focused, too absorbed. The door opened slightly, just enough for someone to slip inside. It was a new intern. Young, quiet, nervous. She held a file in one hand, but her eyes weren't on the papers. They were scanning the corners of the room, the walls, even the decor. Like she was afraid something inside the office might be watching her back. She stopped a few feet away, swallowed hard, and whispered, "Sir, someone put a hidden camera in your office." The billionaire slowly lifted his eyes, clearly expecting her to follow it up with a "just kidding." But she didn't laugh, didn't smile, didn't blink. Her hands trembled slightly as she clutched the file. He leaned back in his chair, raising a brow. "A hidden camera? Here? That's impossible," said the words calmly. But there was a tiny tremor of irritation beneath the irritation that someone would bring such a ridiculous claim into the heart of his empire. The intern didn't argue. She simply stepped closer and whispered again, even softer this time. "I saw it, sir." Her voice was barely audible, yet it carried fear, the kind of fear that didn't come from imagination, but from witnessing something real, something dangerous. The billionaire stood up slowly. His eyes sharpened. He could read markets like open books, sense lies in seconds, and detect half-truths in the tone of a single sentence. But what he saw on her face wasn't a lie. It was dread. "Show me," he said quietly. She hesitated only for a moment before pointing a shaky finger toward the corner of his desk. There, sitting innocently, was a modern, decorative piece, sleek, stylish, expensive, and completely unimportant, or so he always thought. He walked toward it with slow, heavy steps. He could hear his own heartbeat thudding in his ears. The intern stood behind him, tense, as if expecting something terrible to happen the moment he touched it. His fingers wrapped around the object. He lifted it. Underneath, hidden so neatly it almost blended with the wood, was a tiny, glossy black dot. A lens. A camera lens. The billionaire froze. For a moment, he didn't breathe. He tilted the object slightly, and the light hit the lens just right, making it glimmer like a dark. A silent eye that had been staring at him for God knows how long. His pulse quickened. Someone had been watching him. Inside his own office? Inside the most protected place in his empire? He turned to the intern. She looked terrified that something in the shadows might still be observing them. And then, without meaning to, the billionaire whispered something he hadn't said in years. "Who would dare?" The intern didn't answer. She just lowered her gaze, as if the truth itself was too dangerous to speak aloud. And in that moment, with the silent camera staring back at him, the billionaire knew one thing for certain. Whoever planted it was someone close, very close. The billionaire kept staring at the tiny black lens like it was a venomous snake hidden in plain sight. A camera. Here. In his office, the most secured room in the entire corporation, a place only a handful of people could enter without permission. He turned the object slowly in his hand. The lens was so small, so cleverly positioned, that anyone would mistake it for a design element. But the billionaire wasn't anyone. He saw the precision behind it, the craftsmanship, the intent. Whoever put it here didn't just want information. They wanted power. He ran a thumb across the tiny lens. The surface was cool, almost cold, like metal that had been untouched for a long time. But the knowledge behind it, that it had been staring at him, recording him, silently watching him in his most private moments, made his skin crawl. The intern stepped closer, but kept a respectful distance. "It's active," she whispered. "At least, it was earlier." Shot her a quick look. "How do you know?" She hesitated, her fingers tightening around the file she still held. "Accidentally saw the feed." The billionaire's heart dropped. There was a feed, which meant somewhere, someone was watching. His voice sharpened. "Where?" She didn't speak, she simply took a shaky breath as if forcing herself to stay steady despite the fear. In the IT room, someone left a laptop open. It was showing a live video. This office. A chill shot through his spine. Someone inside his building. Someone with access. Someone bold enough to leave evidence sitting around. He didn't waste another second. "Bring security." "Now," he ordered. The intern hurried out, nearly stumbling in her haste. The billionaire walked slowly to the center of his office and stared at the camera again. His mind racing. He thought of every confidential conversation he had had in this room, mergers, deals, secret negotiations, private meetings, personal calls. All of it could be out there. In someone else's hands? He clenched his jaw. The door burst open moments later. 2 senior security officers and the head of IT entered, followed by the intern. The billionaire placed the object on his desk like it was a bomb. "Confirm it," he said. The IT head picked it up, his face tightening as he inspected it closely. After a few seconds, he looked up. "It's real. It's high-end. Extremely high-end. This isn't something anyone can buy casually. It's been transmitting for a while." "How long?" the billionaire asked. The IT head hesitated, then connected the device to a secure scanner. The office fell silent. Only the low hum of machines filled the room. Seconds ticked by. The billionaire's patience thinned finally. Soft beep. The IT head's face drained of color. 3 months, he said quietly. "It's been active for 3 months." 3 months. The billionaire's stomach dropped. 3 months of meetings. 3 months of strategies. 3 months of vulnerabilities exposed. He didn't realize his fists were clenched until he felt his nails digging into his palms. "Trace it," he said, voice low and deadly calm. The IT head nodded quickly and began working. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Everyone watched in tense silence. Even the air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were listening. Lines of code reflected in the billionaire's eyes as the tracing tool ran. Then, suddenly another beep. A result appeared on the screen. The intern gasped softly. The billionaire's face turned to stone. The feed was traced directly to a private device belonging to someone very close to him. Someone who had access to his office, his life, his trust. He stared at the result, his heart turning colder with every passing second. So it was true, the betrayal wasn't from an enemy. It wasn't from a competitor. It wasn't from an outsider. It came from inside his own life. Someone who should have protected him chose to spy on him instead. And this was only the beginning. The billionaire stared at the screen as if his mind refused to accept what he was seeing. The tracing result glowed sharply in the dim light of the office. It pointed to a single personal device, a device belonging to someone who had unrestricted access to his life, his home, his trust, and his heart. His fiancée for a moment. The room felt silent. Too silent, as if sound itself had frozen in midair. Afraid to move, the intern watched him carefully from a few feet away, her eyes wide with fear. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid for him. She knew what this meant. She had seen the look in his eyes change the moment the truth appeared on the screen. Not anger. Not shock. Not even betrayal. It was worse. It was realization. A realization that his life for the last few months wasn't real. His conversations weren't private. His business wasn't secure. His trust wasn't protected. Everything had been watched. Everything had been used. The IT head cleared his throat softly. "The device is registered under, I know who it belongs to." The billionaire interrupted quietly. His voice was calm, too calm like the silence before a storm. He didn't raise his voice, didn't lash out, but everyone in the room felt the temperature drop. He closed his eyes for a second. 3 months. 3 months of intimate moments, late-night talks, strategy meetings, confidential plans. Everything he thought was shared only with his closest people had been monitored, recorded, saved, analyzed. Why? What did she want? He sat down slowly, rubbing his forehead. He wasn't a man who broke easily. He had built his empire from nothing, fought through storms, outsmarted competitors, survived betrayals, and risen stronger every time. But this wasn't a battle of business. This was a betrayal of trust. And betrayal from someone you love always hits in a place money can never protect. The intern stepped forward hesitantly. "Sir, should we remove the camera now?" He opened his eyes and looked at her. She looked small, scared but determined, like she knew removing it was only the first step. He appreciated her bravery. Many would have stayed silent, too afraid to get involved. "No," he said quietly. "Not yet." Everyone looked at him, confused. He leaned forward, eyes fixed on the tiny lens on his desk. "If I remove it now, she'll know I found it." His tone was cold, controlled, calculating. This was the version of him people feared, the version that didn't act out of emotion, but out of strategy. He stood up and straightened his suit. "We keep it exactly where it is. No one touches it. No one disconnects anything." The security officers nodded stiffly. The billionaire took a deep breath. He needed to understand the motive. He needed to understand the plan. He needed to know why the one closest to him would place a camera in his office. Was she trying to steal information? Was someone else controlling her? Or was this all part of something deeper, darker? He walked to the window and looked at the sprawling city below, the city he controlled, the empire he built with his own hands. But tonight he felt small, vulnerable, exposed. The intern stepped a little closer. "Sir, are you okay?" He didn't answer immediately. When he finally turned toward her, there was an expression she hadn't expected. Hurt, quiet, contained, buried deep. "I trusted her," he whispered. The intern lowered her gaze. "I know, and I'm sorry," he nodded, forcing the emotion back into its cage. The billionaire inside him resurfaced. "Prepare everything," he said firmly. "Tomorrow." I confront her. He didn't know what answers he would get. He didn't know what excuses she would give. But one thing was certain. This betrayal was no accident. It was intentional, planned, executed, and the truth behind. It was going to hurt far more than the camera ever could. The next evening arrived with a weight heavy enough to crush silence. The billionaire didn't leave work early, didn't cancel meetings, didn't show even a crack in his expression. But inside him, something had shifted, something sharp, something cold. He went home later than usual, giving himself time to prepare. Time to ensure his emotions would not speak louder than his logic. The penthouse was dimly lit when he arrived. City lights reflecting off the glass walls like stars trying to break in. He stood in the living room, hands in his pockets, waiting. And right on time. The elevator chimed, his fiancée walked in, glowing as always. Wearing that confident smile, the one that always made people believe she adored him, respected him, cherished him. But tonight, that smile hit him differently. Like a mask. A well-polished, perfectly rehearsed mask. "There you are," she said, walking toward him. "You didn't answer my calls." "I was worried." He watched her quietly. She didn't notice the stiffness in his posture. Or maybe she did, but she was too good at pretending. She leaned in to kiss him. But he took a half step back. It was subtle, but her eyes flickered with confusion. "Is something wrong?" she asked. He didn't speak. Instead, he reached into his pocket and placed something on the table between them. The object made a soft clink. A tiny lens. A tiny camera. Her smile froze instantly. Her eyes darted to the device, then back at him, then back at the device. Her lips parted, but no sound came out for a few seconds. She looked genuinely stunned, but he had spent years reading people. And in that moment, he didn't see shock. He saw calculation. Fast, quiet, dangerous. Where? Where did you get that? She finally whispered. He didn't blink. You know exactly where I got it. She stepped back, her face slowly draining of color. I don't understand. What are you implying? He circled the table slowly, his gaze sharp, unblinking. Stop pretending. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. I would never. Don't lie to me, he said. Not loud, not angry, but in a voice so controlled it felt lethal. She flinched at his tone. It wasn't the tone of a man accusing someone. It was the tone of a man who already knew the truth. I trusted you, he continued. I shared everything with you, and the entire time, you were watching me behind my back. Her eyes widened. No, that's not true. I didn't. Someone must have. He slammed his hand on the table, making the tiny camera jump. She gasped. Don't insult my intelligence. For the first time, she couldn't find the next lie quickly enough. She stared at the object like it was a ticking bomb. Why? He asked. His voice broke slightly, and that hurt far worse than any anger. What were you looking for? What did you want? She opened her mouth. Closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. He turned away, running a hand through his hair. All the conversations, all the private discussions, all the things I said thinking I was alone, did you listen to every one of them? She shook her head rapidly. No. I didn't mean it. Wasn't what you think. 3 months, he said bitterly. 3 months of spying. 3 months of lies. Tears welled up in her eyes. I did it for us, she whispered. He laughed a sharp, humorless sound. Us or my empire? She stepped toward him, but he held up a hand, stopping her. There was no warmth left in his eyes. Only clarity. This ends tonight, he said quietly. Whatever we were, whatever I thought we had, it ends now. Her face collapsed into panic. Wait, please, listen to me, but he walked past her, leaving the camera on the table. Behind him, she cried, begged. Reached out, but nothing she said could unmask the truth she had already revealed. He didn't look back as he walked down the long hallway of the penthouse. Her voice echoed behind him, broken, desperate, pleading, but the words no longer reached him the way they once did. The sound felt distant, like it belonged to a life already gone. He stopped near the floor-to-ceiling windows, staring out at the endless city below. Lights flickered across the skyline, each one representing someone living their own truth, while his truth had been stolen from him, recorded, dissected, pinning. He took a slow breath, steady but heavy. The kind of breath a person takes when they finally accept reality. Behind him, footsteps approached hesitantly, soft, uncertain. Please, just listen to me, his fiancée whispered, her voice trembling. He turned around. Her mascara was smudged, her shoulders trembling. She looked like she had shattered and was trying desperately to put the pieces back together before he walked, away forever. But he had seen enough. He had heard enough. And most importantly, he had realized enough. You watched me, he said quietly, each word weighed with months of hurt. You watched everything. Every moment, every conversation, every decision I made. You didn't trust me. I didn't mean to hurt you, she cried. I needed to know. Know what? He demanded. How much money I was making, who I was meeting, what business deals I was planning. Or were you hoping to catch something you could use later? She shook her head violently. No. I swear it wasn't like that. I was afraid. I was insecure. He cut her off. Insecure people ask questions. They don't install cameras. Her face crumpled. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. You were planning something. Maybe not at first, but eventually. No one hides a camera without a purpose. She said nothing. Her silence was more truthful than any words she could have spoken. He exhaled slowly and reached into his pocket. For a moment, she hoped he was reaching for her hand, but instead, he placed something on the table beside her, the engagement ring. Her breath hitched. Please, no. Don't do this. He looked at the ring, not her. I promised this to someone I thought I knew. Someone I thought saw me, not my wealth. Someone who loved me, not my position. A tear slid down her cheek. I did love you. He finally met her eyes. Then why didn't you trust me? She opened her mouth, but no answer came out. Because there wasn't one. He stepped back. The distance between them felt final, like a door slowly closing. I'm done, he whispered. Your lies. Your secrets. Your camera. This ends tonight. Her knees buckled slightly, and she reached out to steady herself on the table. Please, we can fix this. No, he said gently but firmly. You broke something that can't be fixed. He walked toward the door. She cried his name, loud and shaking, but he didn't turn back. Not this time. Not ever again. As he stepped into the elevator, the doors slid shut. The last thing he saw was her collapsing to the floor. The tiny camera still sitting between them like a final piece of truth. When he reached the parking level, he found the intern standing near the exit, unsure if she should stay or leave. When she saw him, she straightened nervously. Sir, I'm sorry you had to go through that. He looked at her for a moment. The intern who whispered the truth. The intern who risked her job to warn him. The intern who saved him from an even deeper betrayal. Thank you, he said softly. She blinked, surprised. For what? For telling me what no one else would? The first time in hours, something shifted in his eyes. Not trust, not affection, not yet, but clarity. Recognition. She had no agenda. No hidden motives, just honesty. He walked past her toward his car, but paused. This is where a chapter ends, he said quietly, but maybe. The next one begins differently. The intern watched him leave, heart pounding, not out of fear this time, but out of something new, something unspoken. And as the billionaire drove away into the night, he finally felt the weight lift. The betrayal was behind him. The truth was revealed. And for the first time in a long time, he wasn't looking back.